Hello, hello. This is Christina, digital marketing coach, your host today. And I have such a pleasure to have my special guest speaker today, Barry Lynch. Barry, am I pronounce your name such good enough?
Yes, indeed. Perfect.
Barry, welcome to the new episode of KSM Podcast. And tell us a little bit who you are, what you do, and where are you based?
Yeah, thank you very much, Christina. I'm based here in Dublin, Ireland. Barry Lynch is my name, and I'm a performance and business coach. So I help businesses grow, develop, and manage. I suppose get out of the chaos with their business and help them to streamline and work on the business instead of in it.
Oh, that's fantastic. And tell us, what is your background? How did you start your business? And what
Oh
triggered you
my
to start your
God.
business? What
How
you are
long have
doing
we
now?
got? So I started in business when I was 16. I used to print business cards and then I developed from there. I started buying and selling cars, while I was at school. And then I ended up buying a carpet cleaning business off a gentleman, and I ran that for over 10 years. That gave me all my business experience. Then I sold up that and I bought into a franchise organization. And we built that up then to multiple seven figures over the course of another 22 years.
Oh, that's nice. And and your background is such a great experience to start your coaching part. Is that correct?
Yeah, look, what I found was I did everything the wrong way for the first probably 10 years of my business life because I didn't know what I was doing. I always say for 25 years of my business life, I was an unconscious competent and didn't realize or how I was creating the success I did. But I now know that it was just down to, me being driven, but also the experience that I gained at that time. I realized that a lot of other people were lacking that. And probably going through the same journey where they're just trying to do it all on their own, having the same problems and issues. So I realized that this is something that not only I do help people with, but I can help.
Yeah, and that's fine, and I know that I was in corporate sector as well in publishing company, and then 2010 I started my own business, and I like freedom, and this is the
Yeah.
way how I started my coaching part and this podcast and everything. And I know that I mean that you worked in the area of with Bob Proctor or something like that. Is that correct? Just can you tell us about a little bit about those this kind of coaching?
Yeah, so look, as I said, I was an unconscious competent. And because of being unconscious competent, which basically meant that, I was caught up in my paradigms, my beliefs, and my behaviors and my habits, I had got myself into a lot of trouble. So when I say got myself into trouble, I had a lot of court cases. I was suing people, people were suing me, and I understood that that was just the way business was. This is the way it rolls, and what happens happens, and what you have to do to keep your business afloat. And it seemed to be the bigger I got, the more problems I had. And that tend to give me, I suppose, unhealthy lifestyle. I was unhappy, but I was certainly creating wealth. But as I said, I thought it was all part of the journey. And then I'd say it was like 6, 7 years ago, I'd reached the pinnacle of my problems when I'd realized that all these court cases and all these problems were just getting too much for me. And I'd no one to turn to, no one to get advice from. I was making all the mistakes myself. So what had happened was I got up one morning and I realized after, being drinking heavy because I turned to alcohol, and what I now know, what I went through was depression as well, but I didn't know it at the time. I'm sure a lot of people go through it in different ways and different stages, but for me, it was the result of the business. I just wasn't happy with everything. And I decided I needed help. And I reached out. I found something online about Bob Proctor. I reached out. I started doing the training with them. And within 3 months, I had changed and turned my life around in every possible way you could believe. And it was as a result of the material that I'd learned, because I'd learned how to change my thought process and my thinking And of course, my beliefs, my behaviors, and my habits. And I eliminated all the problems and issues with court cases, solved them all. Everything got done and dusted, and I start living a completely different life.
And that's fantastic, And I'm like I liked I didn't I wasn't directly like a student of Bob Proctor, but I was listening his like some videos, some coaching part, and he said if I can do it, you can do it, and this is what I learned from and it's why remember it. If I can do it, you can do it. Something in
Yeah,
terms
and
of business.
totally. Yeah, 100%. Look, I had the privilege of being in his home back in November 2019. We were at an event and it was hosted by Bob, and it was like 100 people there. And we were invited to lunch to his home on the Saturday. At the end of the event, there was maybe about 30 or 40 of us. And I'd asked Bob, like how I at this stage I was fascinated by the mind. I was fascinated how I changed my whole life in such a short period of time. So I was fascinated and I started to study the mind like a scientist, how it operated, why we think the way we do, our beliefs about our ancestors, our parents, everything. So long story short, I approached Bob and I said to him, look, what way does it work with, how you read people? I see you're very good at it. And, the advice you give, it seems to work. It worked on me. And he says, you got to listen to yourself. And I went, okay, great. Yeah, yeah. So I was waiting for more information, but I didn't get any more information. I turned around, put my head down, lift my head up, and he was gone. I was going, my God, like, go listen to myself. What is he talking about? Long story short, I went off more confused than what I was at before I asked the question. And I decided to go back to him. And, half an hour, maybe an hour, whatever, I can't remember the time frame, but I went back to him. And of course, everybody's trying to talk to Bob, but I got greedy and went up a second time. And I just said, look, Bob, we were speaking earlier on and you mentioned, start listening to yourself. I said, I'm confused. What do you mean? And he goes, you're very sensitive. And I went, yeah, yeah, people tell me that all my life. And he goes, yeah, like what I said, listen. And I went, okay, okay. And then I turned, he was gone again. So I was, oh my God, what is he talking about? So long story short, I got back to the hotel. This is about 8 o'clock that night. I sat in the bed in the hotel room for like an hour and a half. It felt like days, but um, the light bulb went on, and I realized what he was trying to tell me. And what he was trying to tell me was that I need to start listening to myself, listening to my inner self, listening to my thoughts, because when he mentioned I was sensitive, he was talking about my intuition. And because all my life, people used to tell me I was sensitive because I was sensitive, but I was sensitive about what people said to me as opposed to being sensitive to listening to what they're actually saying. So, in a roundabout way, what I had realized there and then was that when you listen to people, but not with your ears, with vibration, you can pick up their vibration and you can learn to see, what's wrong, what's right, how you can fix it. And it tells you everything. And from that day to this, that's what changed my life because I
And
realized that that's one thing I was missing. I was too busy in my habitual behavior trying to make money and caused a lot of problems. But when I stood back from it and started to listen and adapt, what I was picking up, I was able to communicate more effectively and hence multiply my effectiveness.
yes, and Barry, as you said, we sometimes through the all those kind of habits, business, everything what we do, we don't have time to listen our inner self. And then, as Bob Proctor said, sometimes that you should be such a good listener and to listen yourself inner inside of you, because we are always with many information. Can I do this? Can I do that? Can I go there? Just to be at a time and at this meeting, B2B, B2C meeting, whatever it may be. And this is something, yes. And Bob Proctor was amazing guy, just teaching. He, you know, was teaching us all his life, how to do it. And what was I learned from him, that there are people who are they have so opportunities and a natural way to be a bit. They don't need to have such a high education to be good
Yeah.
good entrepreneur and get some good business owners. What do you think about it?
Oh, 100%. Look, I considered myself uneducated. I left school when I was 16, but I was very successful in business. However, when I was in the room or vicinity of somebody that was more educated than me, I felt intimidated. So if I was in the room of a lawyer, a barrister, solicitor, whatever the case may be, I felt intimidated because they had a lot of knowledge. What Bob had taught us is that you don't, as you said there, you don't need to be knowledgeable. What happens with most people is that they education is good, for sure, but sometimes people overdo it. It's like, a coach wants to be successful and they go out and learn everything they possibly can about it, and then find that, they don't get business. And sometimes it's actually down to their inner selves where the problem is, like what happened to me. When I say I was an unconscious competent, I also had a very bad self-image. So I didn't like the person I was. And it was only when I grew to like who I was, I became a better version of me. And then the people around me became happier and healthier and more effective as a result of what I was doing for them. I was able to share it. But also, when we're caught up in our habitual state of behaviors, the opportunities pass us by. But when we're aware and fully aware of opportunities coming towards us, well, then we can take a hold of them and move forward with them.
And that's fantastic, And when we have such a clear picture about ourselves, we can see people around us with different eyes.
Yeah, for sure. Look, it's a bit like, you walk into a shop and you're purchasing something from the attendant, and they may be a bit rude with you and they throw money at you, whatever, and you get annoyed with them because they were annoyed with you. But the reality of it is when you look at that in context, you don't know what has happened before you walked in. They may be taking it out on you, what might have happened before it, but it doesn't really matter. It's the way you deal with it. Like I used to find that I was that person. I was the sensitive person. I'd react instead of responding to people. So, if the tenant was rude with me, I'd say, "How dare you? Don't throw your money at me." And I'd get annoyed. And then I'd walk out being annoyed with them. And they'd probably be annoyed with me. But when I learned these tricks and about the mind and so forth, well, now when I find somebody is rude to me, I'll say something nice to them. So I'll change their vibration to allow them to understand. Now, sometimes you can do it and sometimes you can't. But the reality of it is you can walk away knowing you said something nice to somebody and being in a good vibration, as opposed to getting annoyed and being in a bad vibration.
And that's fantastic, because you share such amazing story with for our listeners who will listen to this podcast on Amazon, Apple, or maybe I'm going to create YouTube channel, to be honest. Sometimes, and it's fantastic your story, And when you started and when you realized that you changed yourself, thankful to Bob Proctor. And when you started your coaching part, how was that? Maybe you mentioned that, but just to repeat for ours and for our listeners, maybe that your story will impact some other persons and entrepreneurs to start their own journey and to think about themselves, to connect with their inner, deeper
Yeah.
inside of them.
So for me, I have always, going back 13 years ago, I started a franchise organization. So I was teaching my franchisees, how to make me money. And that was the problem. I treated them like they were franchisees and every penny that they made, they had to pay me a percentage of it. Whereas when I changed my thought process, I realized that I need to help them and help them grow and help their business develop. And as a result, then I would reap the rewards that they reap. But I have to help them first. And what had happened was when that change happened, I started to realize that I needed to help everybody. So that included my employees. So if my employee came to me and they wanted to go work for themselves, I would encourage them to do it. I would encourage them to go off because I knew they would never be like me. I knew that they didn't have the passion and desire for the success that I wanted, but I was prepared to help them do that. And when I started to see transformation with people and my difference in communication skills, I realized that I need to start doing this with business owners. And then knowing that they probably were going through some of the issues that I had gone through earlier, it meant it was a double whammy. So in other words, I could have a double effect. One, I could get them thinking differently, and two, I could give them the knowledge that I had gained to help them be successful in their area. Because some people might say, "Oh, I'm a, what do we see? I'm a I'm a bricks and mortar business, but you're a service orientated business. It actually doesn't matter what type of business you are. It's the way you think about it. It's the same principles. And that's what people don't realize. So they sometimes go to somebody, get advice, they get the wrong advice, they put it into practice, and then nothing happens. And the reason for that is because they've taken advice from somebody that has worked for them only. It doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So what I'd learned from the information that I had learned from Bob Proctor is that you've got to find out what the person wants, and then you can help them get it. The rest you can apply the principles, and then the knowledge that I have can help to formulate the business and grow it.
That's fantastic, because, as you said, we are so different, we are unique, and we don't have copy paste option just to be, because your frequency, my frequency of energy or different, we need to shift that. We need to shift the frequency and connect with inner deeper, as I said before, with ourselves, to know who we are, what we do, and where we wanted to go, and to engage some mentor coach in a real way, to connect us. Just as you said, what if something worked for you, it doesn't mean that it works for me.
Yeah, and look, you're Christina, you're so right when we talk about the shift. So that's something that I actually have introduced to, people I teach. I give them a mindset shift process. So I show them how to change the mindset shift from where they are to where they want to go. And then I show them the roadmap and how to get clarity on that so that they can start to work towards that. And of course, if you start to hit the goals that you need to, you start to get excited, and then you realize that, you can raise your goals higher and achieve more.
That's fantastic. And can you repeat for us, when did you start your coaching part? How many
So
years
I
you're
would
in
have started
this
about
area of
2000,
coaching?
yeah, late 2000. I was coaching franchisees from about 2006. But as I said, that was a bit selfish because I was doing it for selfish reasons. Officially, I started to coach individuals and business owners, helping them from roughly about 2000, late 2018, early 2019
That's
is when I
fantastic.
really started.
And who are mostly your clients? You mentioned entrepreneurs, but how, when entrepreneurs, who are mostly your clients, and how they feel after working with you?
Yeah, so most of my clients will be coaches, consultants, and service business owners. So effectively, a coach or a consultant is a service business owner. But I also work with service business owners, as in tradesmen and stuff like that. Results. Look, I've just finished with a guy who owns a car dealership. He did a 6 month training with me. He went from selling 20 cars a month to selling 50 cars a month. Um, but again, it's not me that, made the changes. It was him. I just pointed him in the right direction of what he needed to know to help him get there.
And when we, I always ask sometimes my guest speakers, what do you think? What is the difference between coaching and teaching when we teach someone and when we coach someone in terms of clients, students?
Yeah, it's a great question, and there's a big difference. When you teach somebody something, it doesn't necessarily mean that they want to learn it or they don't listen in the same context. Okay. But when you, I suppose, guide somebody, you find out what their problem is, and you solve it, but you don't tell them. You guide them to solving the problem themselves. And that's the biggest thing, because when they solve it themselves, they realize then that they can solve a lot of other things within their business or their family or their personal or professional careers.
And it that means that as a coach, you guide them, you just give them that they can do transformation from
Yeah,
themselves.
so you guide them to the problem. So if I were to sit and, have a conversation with you and to say, oh, Christina, look, I've just realized, you know what your problem is? Here's what you need to do. You're going to go, okay, that wasn't so good. I don't appreciate you telling me that I have a problem with something. Or some people might say, look, I appreciate that, but they don't really. Whereas if I were to say, Christine, I have a solution for you. If you're happy for me to help guide you to that, we can work together. And then we start working together, and I will know then what I need, the direction you need to go to bring you to solve that problem. And then you will come back and go, oh my God, I've just realized what the problem was. And I go, oh, great, fantastic.
And because in terms of teaching, you can help them and create for them to learn that. But in coaching, you need to give them some, as you said, guidance, and they can do it as a homework on themselves to see and get back with their what they did between two coaching session, and they can transform their approach to their business or their life, whatever it may be, who they work, what they deal with. Is it about life coaching part, or with life coach, or with business coach, or as you said, also coaching part of what you
Yeah.
do?
Yeah, look, it's very much a case of when you lead somebody to a problem, they realize that, first of all, if they might have had a limiting belief in relation to what the problem or issue was in the first case, they get it solved, and then they realize that they can solve other areas of their life simply. Whereas, as I said, if you try to teach somebody or tell somebody, they're not really learning. They haven't learned a lesson in life, or life skill or a business skill. Whereas the other way, they get to hone in on the skills and adapt them going forward to make them a better person.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, and we work about ourselves to be the better version of ourselves, and also to work on our business, to how
Yeah.
to deal with it and move forward in terms to get income, clients, and other things what we need to do.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
that,
look,
that that's
it's
good.
very much a case of when we look at everything in context. And again, as I said, it was me as well. Going back, 6 years ago, I was in the same position. I was just getting up every day, going out, fighting fires, trying to keep my business surviving. Yes, I was doing very well, but I always worried and lived on the fear of losing it all. Whereas when I started operating in a different vibration, I didn't worry about it anymore because I had to put the steps in place to make sure it wouldn't happen. I went from, working 18 hours a day to working 3 hours a day on my business. And that allowed me then to do the coaching and set up other businesses as well. So it gave me more time freedom.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And we all needed to be like a very clever. I can say that to learn to work less and earn much more.
That's it. Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, smart. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and people say that, look, that's a bit of a cliche, and that's easy for you to say. Actually, it works in no matter what type of business you have, whether you're only starting, whether you're thriving, it doesn't matter. It can work in any way.
Yeah, and I think that we have to have, and we need to have higher vibration of our mindset to approach the business, in terms to not have a cliche, work, as you said, smart, less, and
Yeah.
in that way, what you say, to then to work
It,
10,
it
15 hours, and then you see nothing, after that.
Yeah, look, it all starts in the mind. Like what I said, my mindset of working 18 hours a day, it was because I was in fear of losing it all. And I had to be there all the time and make all the decisions. But when I systemized the business and I changed the way I was thinking, I didn't have to be there anymore because systems were in place to cope with everything. And that meant that I was now working smarter, not harder. I was earning more and doing less. So, in fact, it was a change of mindset. And as I said, it starts in the mind. So we've got to remember that, the mind can accept or reject anything we put to it. And sometimes we accept the negative and, of course, what we have learned with our beliefs, our behaviors, and sometimes through our ancestors. And we think that that's the way it should be. But in fact, it's not. We can change our mind set to whatever we want it to be and go after what we want and not what we need.
Yeah, and because of that, we need someone as you are, just to connect with Barry, to help you to move forward, just as Barry was in that uh, place, and now he is, after 6 years, as you said, just to change your life and change your self-confidence, in a way to change your mindset and your vibration
Yeah.
way.
For sure. Look, when you change your mindset, it will lead to more confidence within your business, within your personal life. And of course, that will allow you to multiply your effectiveness in all areas of your life.
And Barry, tell us a little bit. Do you work offline much more than online? How do you work, and how listeners can connect with you? Can you tell us about your website? I will put all information below this video, below this podcast, but also just to how listeners can connect with you.
Yeah, so Facebook, Barry Lynch's with an S, is my profile there. LinkedIn, leadership skills, connect with me there. Or you can do masterminds 247.com. So I do weekly masterminds or bi-weekly masterminds with business owners that, maybe can't afford coaching or don't want to do coaching. They can come on board. We'll help solve a problem for them through mastermind calls.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. And I know that you run your podcast as well. Can you tell us a little bit about your podcast and how listener or whoever could be? I was guest speaker in your podcast as well, and thank you so much for that. I'm so pleasure. It's my pleasure. I'm so honored. But also, can you tell us a little bit about your podcast and how do you do that and how do you run your podcast and share stories with
Yeah,
your
so
guests?
I set up a podcast, Entrepreneur Lives. So it's based on the lives of entrepreneurs. Because again, I suppose it triggered from my earlier life to now my new life. So I find it intriguing, to talk to entrepreneurs and business owners and, how they're getting on with their business and what they do and how they do it. And, we get to explore, from billionaires to people only starting businesses. So again, I love conversations with people. I love to hear, how their mind works. It gives me great insights, and I get the pleasure of meeting people like you in it.
Oh, thank you so much. And I was so shy in front of the camera. And when I was 4 years ago, I started my digital marketing challenge, 21 day. And I created 15 videos and I hosted four entrepreneurs. And this is how it was Prom Entrepreneur Day. But last year in January 2023, I started and I have done rebranding KSM podcast, Growing Business Online with Christina. And I'm super happy with this podcast because this Fit Spot has been selected to follow in 2023, one of the top 20 in online business, and also is in 2024, which I'm super. This is such an
Yeah,
opportunity
congratulations.
to be.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And this is my obligation to be better in a way to engage with guest speakers and share their stories for our listeners who wanted to learn from my guest speakers.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. It's really good. It's great to be rewarded for, what you do. And of course, to be able to, get that message across to other people. So yeah, congratulations on that.
Thank you so much, and congratulations to you for your podcast. And I know I was feeling amazing in your podcast, just because I know that you do a lot of those podcasts. And for some people, there are many different people, and we are as you are, as I am, and other, and they sometimes have their own business idea, but they don't have they don't have a force, they don't have they're in stuck. Can you share with us something to encourage them, maybe to connect with you, or however, just to change their mindset, to they change their belief system, and just try to do that? Because if they're not trying, they don't know how it's going to be.
Yeah, for sure. Look, it's very much a case of most people are comfortable, being comfortable. But when you change the mind shift, and as I said, I have a 7-step process for changing that. You tend to become comfortable being uncomfortable. And then you can start to change the way you think. But also, somebody once said to me, I don't have the money or I'm looking for investors. And I say, but sure, look, that's like saying if I ran out of money tomorrow and I lost everything, I'd go into the market and I'd buy a box of apples and I'd stand on the street selling them so I can make money. So it's whatever you're prepared to do to take that business forward is what the success will be. And that's what I normally find with people is that I go through it with them, what they are prepared to do, where they're comfortable, where they're uncomfortable, introduce the mindset shift, and then show them how they can become successful in whatever business they want.
Oh, it's fantastic, Barry. It was, I think that it was such amazing story talking to you today, and you shared such amazing story. And I think that your story is going to be so inspired to inspire other people to join, to connect with you, and also just to share, just to they ask you about how to start their business, maybe just to change their mindset about they're maybe in shy or they're in stuck or something like that.
Yeah, look, it's as I said, it comes down to the mindsets, the way they're thinking. Like it's like going to, your local pub, for a beer with your mate, and your mate tells you that you have an idea and he tells you it's no good. That's his opinion. If you have an idea, you should go with it. That's your inner self telling you to do something. You don't have to listen to the outside world, listen to your inner world, and then take steps or action based on that.
Just to remind you, just listen your inner world, as
Yeah.
Barry said, and don't think maybe you can connect with only one person who will talk with your language. I mean, business language, and understand what you do. You don't have to think about what your environment think
Yeah.
about. Just listen yourself, be on your track, listen your inner voice inside of you, and try it. Don't be shy. Just move forward and start your business.
Yeah, I love that. There's one thing I always say to people is that take action every day. Take an actionable step every day that's going to bring you closer to your goal. And with no doubt, you'll start to move towards your goal.
And don't forget to connect with Barry. Barry will help you a lot. I will put all information about Barry. Barry, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure having you today as my special guest speaker in 2024.
Thank you very much, Christina. It's been a pleasure.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. And I will see you again in my podcast as a guest speaker with new
Thank you.
stories. Thank you so much, and bye for now.